Excessive giving can be described as the chronic poison in any relationship. Have you ever noticed that even though you're clearly doing good for the other person and working hard for the relationship, they become increasingly distant and even want to escape? The answer lies here. You think you're giving, but you're actually taking. You're using the guise of "I'm doing this for your own good" to satisfy your own psychological needs. Many people might not understand. I've clearly done so much, how did I become the taker? The problem lies in the word excessive. What does excessive mean? It means you repeatedly suppress your own needs just to accommodate the other person. But suppressed needs don't disappear. They just explode in another form. For example, you give a lot but secretly keep score of what you should get back. You sacrifice yourself but develop a sense of moral superiority. You think, "I've done all this, so they should reciprocate or even treat me twice as well." Otherwise, they're just an ungrateful person who doesn't know how to appreciate. So you start constantly mentioning how much I've done for you. At first they might be moved, but over time these words become like an invisible mountain, suffocating them. No one can live long-term under the shadow of guilt, let alone feel relaxed and loved in this relationship. They want to escape not because you're not good enough, but because the relationship has become too heavy. There's another even more common situation. You think you're doing what they want, but you're actually not. For example, you think they're tired from work, so you stay up late planning a custom trip to surprise them. But all they want is to rest quietly. Then you feel they're ungrateful and might even get angry or hurt. But have you considered that they never had this need, and you never asked? You think you're doing good for them, but you're actually satisfying a psychological need to be praised as thoughtful. You want them to see your effort, you want them to respond to you and acknowledge you. Ultimately, you're hoping to gain emotional validation from them and establish an emotional connection. In other words, you're using something they don't need to exchange for the response you want. When you give this way long-term, the relationship is no longer equal. It becomes a controlling structure of "I need, you're responsible." So the question is, why do you give excessively in a relationship? The answer is, you lack confidence in being loved. You don't believe you naturally deserve to be treated well, so you can only rely on treating you desperately well to exchange for the love you want. This pattern often stems from your attachment relationship with your parents in childhood. When you didn't receive enough emotional response in childhood, you transfer that longing to intimate relationships, giving desperately and people-pleasing, expecting to be acknowledged and needed. But often your so-called love is just to fill your own emptiness, to move yourself rather than satisfy the other person. If you're unsure about your motivation for giving, you can ask yourself two questions. First, if the other person doesn't need your giving, would you still continue? Second, if you can't stop, why is that? When you seriously answer these two questions and become aware of your heart's true desires, you'll discover, I've been using loving others to compensate for not loving myself enough. When you truly learn to listen to your own needs instead of just suppressing them, you'll become more clear-minded and powerful. You no longer need to prove your worth through others, but can actively build the life you want. What you have then is no longer an oppressive love, but a relaxed self-love. This version of you can better understand others, respect differences, and let go of expectations. Relationships are no longer about sacrifice and exchange, but about mutual nourishment and mutual achievement.